So I'm here at the textile show. I'm speaking to, what is your name?
Mary Devan.
Mary Devan. What's your specialty?
Lingerie, vintage lingerie.
Vintage lingerie. Now, Mary, this may be my own observation, but I have the feeling that these days women don't really get all dressed up in lingerie and that kind of thing.
That's true.
That's true.
That seems to be true. What I hear is that women sleep in their sweatsuits.
And why do you think that's the case? Why do they not have the same interest in looking appealing for their mates?
Well, I think there are a few things. One, I think women are just too busy nowadays and they're tired and they go to bed, they don't too much care what they're wearing. I think the other thing is they haven't been exposed to these beautiful vintage lingeries, say that I was, when I was a child and growing up. They don't know it exists. They don't know about these lingerie shows where they could come and see it. And it's getting harder to find the really beautiful old things. Victoria's Secret has kind of stepped in and has kind of filled that empty place. They have some looks that are vintage and they're very pretty, but they're not made of the beautiful silks and the beautiful cotton laces.
So what do you think some of the sociological impacts are? I mean, for example, I saw on the news Friday that marriage is at its lowest. It's 39% of the households now, married couples, whereas, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, it was like 79%.
Yes.
Do you think that's had any impact on it one way or the other?
I don't know that itself. I think the whole package probably is related. I think the mores have changed so much from when I was a little girl. For example, couples did not live together. When I was, say, in my 20s, it was just completely forbidden. And now it's okay to. And so I think a lot of people choose that as an option to marriage if they don't plan to have kids, or even nowadays having kids without marriage doesn't seem to be the big deal that it used to be. Marriage used to be just kind of to protect the family unit and protect the kids, and all of that seems to be changing, and the male-female roles are getting not defined in the same way they used to be. And I think along with that, maybe some of the women aren't as interested in looking as feminine as they could in beautiful lingerie.
Why is that? Why do they have less of an interest in that?
Well, because they are not, the feminine role is not defined in the same way that it was 50 years ago.
Would you say overall that's been an advantage to society?
Yes, certainly to women. It's been an advantage to women. I think it's been an advantage to society because I think women now really can be all that they can be, as per Oprah. She's an example.
And are the women happier now?
That I don't know.
Because in a recent study that was broadcast in several news outlets, it compared the happiness level of women in the 50s compared to the women these days, and it showed that by their standards, that women, although more this and more that, were far less happy. And so I'm wondering, is it okay to sacrifice happiness for some of the other values?
I don't think anybody ever intends to sacrifice happiness.
But is happiness less important than self-empowerment?
It may be. It may be. And
so happiness is not like a worthy end of itself, that it is not really something that important to pursue, that if one has it, that's fine, but self-fulfillment might be better.
And authenticity, being true to who you are. I think that's really what creates happiness, is when you really know who you are and kind of what your purpose in life is, and you're moving in that direction, or you're there.
Well, wouldn't it be hard for women to have authenticity now because the recent sociological changes are so new and the changes are still in progress? And so how do you know what is your authentic self? Because the things that your mother used to believe are now thrown out the window, and before you even have a chance to even think about what you believe, your children are rejecting. So since there is such an evolution in our society and mores and all this, how can one even know that one is authentic to what?
Yeah. I think just to your inner self, that what you are to the outside is consistent to who you are on the inside. I think that's kind of what authentic is.
Let's say in the early 70s, there was a tremendous amount of pressure for women to join the women's liberation movement, to talk the talk and use certain kinds of phraseologies. Now, it couldn't have been authentic for all of them to do that. Certainly there was a portion of them who embraced it. Well, then there was another portion of them that didn't feel that way, but went along, because that's kind of how we tend to be.
Right.
So I would tend to think we're just really in a big state of flux.
I think that anytime mores change, it is a big state of flux, and it's hard to know when it will kind of settle out. I think the really young mid-teenagers, I think they're trying to define who they are, and it's very different than who anybody has been before, and who knows where that's going to go.
Because I'm encountering a lot of women these days who want to have babies and who look upon the women that they know of who do stay at home, who look at them with great envy because they can't, because they have to they have to work. And this to me was surprising, because when I went to college and all that kind of thing, that idea was taboo, to want to be a traditional housewife.
Yes.
And now it's being embraced philosophically, but they can't really do it because things have changed so much. So that's almost it's almost an option not available to them.
Well, I think what women want probably is a combination of the two. Self-fulfillment with some kind of a creative career, and the creativity of producing children. And of course, it's nice to have a happy marriage with that, so that the kids can be raised within a family, but it's hard to do all of those things. It's hard to do all of it, and so it doesn't happen for a lot of women that they can successfully do all three things.
Okay, well, I guess not.